gentlemen, and welcome to Play Expo Manchester 2017. Now, my name is Dan Wood.
I'm Ravi.
Now, we host a podcast called the Retro Hour Podcast. Now, if you haven't heard our show before, it comes out every Friday. I think we are Britain's only weekly retro gaming podcast.
I think so. Maybe it might get removed if we find another one and they tell us otherwise.
Now, the way the show works is we normally run through the big retro headlines that have been making the news headlines in the world of retro over the last week, and then we welcome on a veteran of the video games industry, somebody who's got an amazing story, people who are behind those games that we all grew up playing, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing on the Retro Hour stage here at Play Expo this weekend. Now, I thought it might be quite interesting to find out what kind of crowd we've got in here today. Anyone have a Sega Mega Drive growing up? By show of hands? Quite a few.
Super Nintendo.
Anybody have an N64? Oh, I thought there might be a few of them in today. Well, we are here to celebrate, of course, probably the most legendary N64 game that celebrates its 20th anniversary this year.
Yeah, it's the third most popular N64 title behind Mario 64 and Mario 64 Kart, isn't it? I said that wrong.
Pretty much everybody had, I mean, those legendary multiplayer games, we'll remember, you know, having rage quits, I'm sure, many times back in the day. So I just want to let you guys know as well that coming up a little bit later on today, we've got a Signosis panel at 4 o'clock. And also at 2 o'clock, there is going to be something that you guys have got to try out. It's called the Dark Room. Now, this is kind of an interactive comedy text adventure game. If you did book tickets online, you can collect those straight afterwards from outside. If you haven't booked tickets, there are still some available. Definitely recommend you guys get them, and you can get them from just outside here when it finishes. But right now, we're going to hand you over to our good friend Paul Drury from Retro Gamer magazine, and make some noise for GoldenEye 64.
Hello everyone. Welcome to Play Expo Manchester. My name is indeed Paul Drury. I'm ably assisted, as always, by Martyn, Carroll, and we both scribble for a magazine called Retro Gamer. We're also old enough to have been gaming in the 90s. And gaming in the 90s, you knew where you were. If you wanted to play a first-person shooter, you did that on a PC. Rare made cute, colourful platform games, and if any game was based on a film licence, you knew it was going to be rubbish. Then in 1997, along came GoldenEye and changed all that. It ended up selling 8 million copies, and is still to this day invariably near the top echelons of those best games ever lists. The game was made by a core team of just 9 people, and I'm delighted that 2 of that original team are with me on stage today. So can we start by giving a huge warm welcome to Carl and Graham. Thanks, chaps. Okay, this is how it's going to work. I've prepared some questions, and I'm going to go in turn and ask Carl and Graham about the making of GoldenEye. Then we're going to hand it over to you. There's plenty of time for you to ask questions of them both. And then we're going to finish with a 4-player deathmatch. Now, as you can see, there's only 2 of these people here. So there's going to be an opportunity for 2 of you to come up on stage and play them at the game they made. Now that might sound daunting, but I've just talked to Carl, he can't even remember the controls. So don't be put off that you're playing against the people that made it. I think you've got a chance. And we have got a prize to give the winner, which is a signed copy of GoldenEye cartridge. So without further ado, have you got do you want to, okay, can we, I'll sit down. Can we start by saying, can you tell us your full name, your role on GoldenEye, and then tell us who your favourite James Bond is.
Okay, everyone hear me? Great. My name's Carl Hilton. I was the lead artist, mainly responsible for most of the environment art in the game, but also bits and pieces like weapons and some of the stuff. It was a very small team, so I ended up doing quite a lot of it. So yeah, main environment artist and lead artist on the project. And my favourite Bond? Classics, definitely Roger Moore, but I do love the Daniel Craigs, so I'll take either of those.
Hi everyone, I'm Graham Norgate. I did the music and sound effects for GoldenEye, shared the composing duties with my good friend Grant Kirkhope, who I'm sure many of you know. My favourite Bond, I'm not copying, but also as a man who grew up in the 70s, it's going to have to be Roger Moore, with a bit of Daniel Craig thrown in. He's pretty good.
Which bit of Daniel Craig do you want thrown in?
The pecs, mostly.
Okay. Right, Carl, I'm going to start with you if that's okay. So Carl, can we start off by you telling the audience, when did you first arrive at Rare and what was your first role when you got there?
I started in Rare in 1994, I think it was, and I was brought on. I came straight from Bournemouth University and I did a couple of backgrounds for Killer Instinct, which was the arcade fighting game, and then they were just setting up the Bond team at that point. And that was Martyn, who was the lead programmer, and Mark Edmonds, who was the second programmer. And I was still in the training room actually, because I'd been there about 6 months. And Martyn came in and said, "Oh, we're going to do a Bond game, and do you know James Bond? Do you like the movies?" So I said, "Yeah, I love the movies." And he said, "Okay, you're our first artist then." So that was it.
So was that the interview? He just said, "Do you like Bond?"
Do I like? If I'd said no, things might have been very different. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting? I wanted to know that, alluding to what I said in my introduction, is that licensed video games are invariably rubbish. So even though you like Bond, were you feeling optimistic, enthusiastic, or was there a little bit in your head that said, this is probably going to be rubbish?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't. I mean, I was very naive. I was just delighted to be working at Rare. I was amazed I got the job in the first place. Whatever they'd asked me to do, I was going to do it, and I was really happy to do it. But and Bond, I love Bond, so I was thinking this is great. But yeah, in the back of my head, I thought, film licenses. It's going to be a tricky one. Not sure what we're going to do with that. But luckily, I mean, at that point, absolutely nothing had been decided about the game. It was a license, and that was it.
That's interesting, because Rare are renowned for making 2D side scrollers. Was there any point that GoldenEye was going to be a 2D side scroller?
It was going to be a SNES game, yeah. So initially, Martyn was approached by the Stampers to do the project. Nintendo had approached Rare with the license and asked them to do it. And Martyn had said he didn't want to do a film tie-in unless he could do something special with it. And the condition there was, we knew the N64 was coming along. We had one, it was called Project Reality dev kit in the whole of the studio. And he said, if I get that kit and I make it on the N64, or as it wasn't called that then, but then we'll do it. So that was sort of his precondition.
And it would have been a very different game, wouldn't it? I understand that Virtua Cop, which was very big in the arcades there, the Sega title, was quite an influence. Can you tell me, did you actually go and play Virtua Cop, think we could do this with Bond?
Yeah, we decided quite early on that it was going to be a 3D first-person perspective game. We didn't think we'd be able to do the full free roaming, so we thought we'd do it on rails. And Rare is quite close to Tamworth, and there was a big Sega World in Tamworth. And so we went to HR and asked for a load of money to go down and put cash into all the machines to play them. And the main thing is we went down and spent the evening playing through Virtua Cop. And decided that was definitely the way to go with Bond, because it was all guys shooting set up things, and we thought we could do that very well. So
Virtua Cop's a damn good game, but of course it is on rails. At what point in the development did you go, you know what, I think we can actually take this off the rails and players can actually start exploring this world?
We built the first level that I built was the underneath the dish in Arathebo, the control centre with the big screen at the back, and I built that as a test case. So we put a track in it and the camera followed it down and went around, and we set up characters to jump out at you and you shot them. Very crude, basic sort of. And at that point, Martyn and Mark were working on the game engine. I mean, everything was written from scratch, so they were getting the 3D engine up and running, and actually the performance of the console was a lot better than we were expecting. And so Martyn came in and we were chatting and saying, well, actually, I think if we're careful with what we model, and we keep it very, very cheap, then we can probably do it free roaming. So at that point, I immediately started changing how I was making stuff to make it much, much cheaper.
Fantastic. We've actually got our first still at the moment. So you were particularly involved with level design. Before we go any further, can I say a big thank you to a very good website called GoldenEye Decoded. I've credited it on there. I must say I didn't actually get permission for the person that looks after this, but then I realised that whoever does look after this, are they in the room by the way? Is the person who looks after this, right, because you've put 3 of my articles from Retro Game without asking my permission, right? So if you've got an issue in this, I'll see you in court. Anyway, Carl, I believe this is some of your sort of early a list of possible levels. Can you remember doing this?
It's not my handwriting, but yes, I've actually got a scan of that list at home, which is done in my handwriting.
Can you talk us the ideas. I'm particularly intrigued with the kind of possible locations. At this point, you weren't slavishly following the film then, you were kind of saying this is what we could do. Tell us about how the levels sort of evolved.
So one of the first things we did is they were filming the film down in Leavesden, the Rolls-Royce factory, which is now the Warner Brothers studio, and that was the first film that got made there. So every day for about 2 weeks, the car came and picked us up, and I went down there with a couple of the other guys, and with a camera, an old 35mm camera, and took photos of everything I could find. And we got given a copy of the script. So we could read through the script, so we knew exactly what was going to happen in the movie, and we were just trying to pull out. And nearly all of GoldenEye, the film, was actually made at Leavesden. There was very little that was actually on location. Lots of models, lots of fake streets, all the St. Petersburg streets. Almost all of that was done on site. So we could see roughly what was going to be used, and it was just trying to work out what the consoles. No one had made a console first-person shooter, and no one had done an engine on the N64 before, so we just weren't quite sure in terms of the performance what we could achieve. So yeah, at that stage was just a wish list of what things would be cool.
Just before I move on to Graham, I'm kind of intrigued if sorry, not yet. Go on, there's one more. Just before I go on to Graham, I'm intrigued at how you go about sort of designing a level. Did you sketch things out? Did you do it all on? Did you make models? Or I know that you've got a background in architecture, and I wonder if that was an influence at all.
Yeah, I studied architecture. My BA was in architecture, and then I went to Bournemouth and did an MA in computer graphics at the time. So from my point of view, it was natural for me to do all the 3D environments, and basically all I did was looked at what the film was using, and I had all the photos, and when I was down on the set, I sketched out what the layouts were. And then when we brought it back, we looked at it, and clearly none of the layouts were anywhere near big enough to set a game in it. So then it was just a question of adding lots and lots of supporting rooms and corridors around it. And it was very organic. I mean, I'd build this stuff quite quickly, quite roughly, and then I'd give it to one of the designers, which was either Duncan or Dave, and they would play around with it for a while, and they'd come back and ask me to make changes. And once we sort of played it a bit more, then I would start to actually try and finish it off and make it look a bit better.
Thank you so much, Carl. Can we move over to Graham? Welcome, Graham. And Graham, starting off similarly, when did you start at Rare? And what was your first kind of task when you got there?
Well, it was April 1st, 1994.
That's rather apt.
Yeah, good timing. And like Carl, I was working on the arcade version of Killer Instinct. So yeah, we started off working with quite advanced tools for the time, where most of the other company was still working on SNES. So I thought this is pretty fancy, really good. And then when that came out, I worked alongside Carl and Martyn and built up quite a good relationship with them then. And when it came, I think it was like mid-2000, mid-1995.
It's longer ago.
Yeah,
Great.
And I was just sitting in Martyn's office looking at what they'd been working on, and we just got chatting, and he said, how about writing some music for it? So,
can I say,
yes, please?
I'm dying to know that, so you're a musician, and they want you to do music for a Bond game. Did you just think, this is the easiest gig in the world, I just have to do the theme, and then I can go back to the bar?
It's a tricky theme. It's pretty jazzy. There's some pretty tricky chords in there. Yeah, no, it was great. When I was little, my parents had a John Barry compilation LP or something that I used to play. So I grew up loving his music. So it was brilliant. You know, do some nice sweeping strings and stuff like that. But before, we hadn't actually heard the score for GoldenEye, which was it Eric Serra? Yeah. Which was quite a departure from normal Bond music that you'd expect. And I know I went away, I might have nicked a few ideas of his to put them into the soundtrack, just to give it that kind of GoldenEye feel.
I'm intrigued because I think with GoldenEye, the music does actually try and respond to things that are happening in the game. So can you tell us about the process of doing music for particular levels? I mean, did you get to play the levels with Carl and you think, you know, that we'd have an E minor just there?
Yeah. being in-house, you're in a very fortunate position where you can work as the game is progressing. So you've got time to sort of soak it in, play the levels, see the pace of the game, and then write accordingly, as opposed to just being saying, well, as you had a list there, do us a tune for the warship, in brackets, French. Yeah, so,
you weren't only responsible for the music, you were responsible for the sound effects. Okay? So I want to know, did you end up punching people quite a lot?
So I was doing some research, well, trying to remind myself what went into it. There's not much. There's about 280 sound effects in GoldenEye, whereas today you do tens of thousands. The memory was, we had 700 kilobytes or something. So there's probably about 3 punch sounds in there.
But I want to, GoldenEye's famous the fact that, wherever you shot someone, they acted kind of differently. Did that follow with the sound effects? I mean, did you sort of, did you find you punching someone in the stomach, then kneeing them in the groin?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't as advanced as the mocap, unfortunately. It was just, this man has now been hit, make him say ouch, basically.
Well, it was certainly very effective. Now then, you were producing music and sound effects for a cartridge. Now, I would have, being a layperson, would have thought that was a disadvantage for a musician as opposed to being a CD-based console. But I'm not sure you agree. Was it actually helpful that it was a cartridge game?
At the time, well, with CD, you had the quality, you had the CD quality, as it were, but you were limited by the size of the disc, which would have been about, after you've got the game data on there, about 40 minutes of music. With GoldenEye, there was, I don't know, probably a couple of hours, maybe a bit more, and you were running the music from MIDI sequences, which you could chop and change whenever you wanted. So it gave you a lot of flexibility, and certainly at the time I preferred working that way than just having a CD track that plays at one point. You could make it a lot more interactive.
Now we're going to go to another still now, so Martyn. Okay, so Graham, could you look at, this is the office where they produce GoldenEye. Graham, I'd just like you to talk us through your choice of office decor on this one.
This is not my office.
Do you remember this place?
I do. That was Martyn's room, because I can remember there's a Blade Runner poster next to the young lady.
Can I say that doesn't make it all right, just because there's Blade Runner in the background, okay?
Rare was a different place in those days.
Can I ask you a question? The way I understand it is that at Rare, you were quite independent. You did have kind of teams. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, Graham. Were you in your own kind of barn?
Yeah.
And it was just, you were very much on your own. Was that isolating, or was it kind of liberating because you felt independent?
I'd say it was liberating. Rare's office at the time was on an old, it was an old farmhouse basically. So there was a lot of these barns that had been converted, and the teams were in these barns. So you had the old farmhouse, which was at the time the Killer Instinct Super Nintendo team. You had the Donkey Kong barn. You had the Blast Core barn, and then next door to them was us. And people would just kind of leave you alone and let you get on with it.
I think it's not just that sense of independence, which sounds fantastic, but I am right, I think, in saying that if there was 9 core people, of those 9, I think 8 of you hadn't really worked on a full game before.
No.
I think I've got that right. So this is the question then, is there an advantage to that, you don't know what you can't do, or looking back, is that one of the reasons why it took you so long to finish the game?
Bit of both. Naivety is a fantastic thing because it makes you try things that you would never do given experience. Because you look at it and go, that's never going to work, let's not do it. But without that knowledge, you just go, right, let's do this and let's make it work. The timing was a little bit upsetting for some people.
To be fair, it wasn't out before the next Bond film came out, wasn't it? Okay.
Just about.
We're going to go to a second still, and I'm going to ask Carl to respond to this one. Can you tell us, Carl, why is that, and why is it it got something to do with GoldenEye?
That's an Onyx 2 reality engine. It's a very posh name. So we were the first company at Rare. We were the first people to get our hands on these. It was the size of a small fridge. It sat under my desk. And it pumped out ferocious amounts of heat. And we had a very hot summer that year. And I remember we were daisy chaining fans from the door because there's no AC to try and keep cool. But yeah, we had some smaller silicon graphics machines, but they weren't very good at 3D, and we were trying to make a full 3D game, and they were struggling on the frame rate. This thing would run at 30 frames a second, which back in 1994-95 was fully textured with a light, not real-time lighting, but you could texture stuff up at quite a high res, and it would actually work. So we had, we had about 5 in the end, and they were very unreliable. The heat, mainly because of the heat. And I remember the silicon graphics guys would come out all the time to fix them, and there'd be different guys coming. Often they would turn up and look at it and go, "Oh my God, it's a reality engine," you know. And then they'd bring up their mates and go, "Guess what I'm looking at?" And you think, "I'm not sure this guy knows how to fix this."
Dare I ask how much all of those cost?
I think they were about 25k a pop a throw at the time. That's when 25k was a lot of money. Yeah, we had 4 or 5 of them, and they were beasts of machines, and they had some really good games on as well.
Really?
Yeah.
So you can actually play games made on those?
Yeah, it ran Unix, so any games that you could run, and they ran very fast. So there was a really good flight simulator where it was all on local LAN play. So in the evenings we would often do a lot of multiplayer games on it.
Is this now the most expensive console ever made?
It was.
Well, there you go. You've learned something new there, people. Okay, this is what I want to ask you: is that you were using this because for quite a proportion of the project, you didn't know what the N64 hardware was exactly going to be like. So let me ask you about that, Carl. What is it like trying to develop for hardware that it doesn't technically exist yet?
Yeah, we didn't know. We had emulators that they ran on these. So because the original code name for the N64 was Project Reality, and they was using the Reality engines on these. So we sort of had rough guidelines, but we didn't know how much memory there was going to be in the final console. We didn't know some of the specs on the final chips. So the whole thing was built. The game was built quite conservatively in terms of trying to keep everything. It doesn't look like it now, but it was trying to keep everything running at 30 frames a second, which was if you look at GoldenEye, it doesn't run at 30 frames a second, and that's partly why.
When the actual N64 hardware arrived, a relief, a shock? What was your reaction? Did you have to start cutting things out, or was it, hey, hang on, this is okay?
No, from what I remember, actually, the game moved straight onto it without. I remember the things arriving, and we all sort of gathered around, and Martyn was trying to get some of the demos up and running on it, and it took a couple of days just to get everything running, so we weren't sure initially whether the thing was actually working. But actually, as soon as that happened, the game went on it, and it ran quite nicely. I remember the first thing it did was it down-res all the textures really massively, and I was looking at the game thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to redo all of these textures. But actually, we managed to sort of. The largest texture in GoldenEye is a 64 by 64 pixel intensity texture. Most of them are 32 by 32, so they were tiny anyway.
Now, whilst we're delighted that we've got 2 members of this team, of course you weren't alone, so we've managed to get a photo of the people that couldn't join us today. So Carl, could you do me the honours of talking from left to right? Could you just say the people we are looking at on the screen? I'm assuming you can recognise them.
No idea, never seen them before. They didn't do anything in the project anyway, it was just me and Graham. That's Duncan Botwood, who was one of the main designers on the project. He actually built a lot of the blocking out of the levels, and then he would give them to me and I would start making them look pretty. B. Jones, she did most of the animation, it was all the mocap system, and she did some of the character edits, built some of the characters as well. The guy in the middle is Martyn Hollis, who was the lead programmer. The guy behind is Steve Ellis. He did all the multiplayer programming. He came on about a third through the project, and Martyn basically told him to go to the corner and make multiplayer work. That was the thing that we didn't tell the stampers about. Mark Edmonds is in the back right there. He was the other main programmer. He did a lot of the core engine programming along with Martyn Hollis. Guy in the middle is the famous Dr. David Doak, who appears in the game in multiple locations. He came from Oxford and was hired by Rare for the IT department, and got very bored working in the IT department and came over to see us all the time, and we got him to come and join us and do a lot of the design work. And then that's Grant Kirkhope, who Graham mentioned earlier, who also did some of the audio. And
thank you. Let me pick it up. Can we just start with Martyn then? Okay, so Martyn was the team leader, the person that put it together. Can you remember? He's not here. So please will keep a secret. They won't tell anyone. Is that what was he like as a team leader? What are your memories of him leading this team?
I think the best word for Martyn is enigmatic. He was very, very chilled and laid back. I mean, the thing with the GoldenEye team was that, we never made a game before. None of us really knew what we should be doing. So we all sort of sat together in 3 very small rooms and did what we thought was right. And Martyn was very great in the sense that he just completely let us get on with it. And, he would come to me and say, we need these levels, can you go and work out how to make them? So at that point I would do things like that list and come back saying, well, I think we should be looking at these locations and I'm going to start modelling this, this and this. And he was totally cool. And as alluded to earlier, the game was actually rather late in the end. And he was the one who got called over to the main meeting rooms regularly to talk to Nintendo in America and explain to them why they weren't going to have the game when we originally told them they were going to have the game. And that conversation happened several times over a year. But he never came back and had a go at us. It was always like, it's fine, they're fine, it'll be fine. Just carry on what we're doing.
I'm just going to pick out one other person in this team. Duncan Botwood here, I have met before. Is that he gave me a great line. He said, I died 1,000 times for GoldenEye. Which I said, do explain. And apparently I think he was instrumental in the motion capture bit. So, Carl, tell us what does he mean when he said he died 1,000 pounds? Were you basically punching this man repeatedly to get his reactions?
Yeah, Duncan was unfortunately the fall guy for all of that stuff. So we had a very crude mocap system in one of the rooms with a big sort of crash mat. And it covered in all these wires because it wasn't a wireless system. It had wires attached to a big thing in the middle of the ceiling. And so he was all the animation, all the male animation in the game was Duncan doing it and us recording it. So we were trying to work out how to blow people up and shoot them, And when he just tried to sort of, bless him, he wasn't much of an actor. Nice guy, but not an actor. And so he would fall down dead, and we'd look at it and go, that was good. So we started, and I'm ashamed to say it now, but we tied rope around him and stuff and sort of pulled him in different directions when he wasn't expecting it.
It's almost 50 Shades of Grey.
If someone
50 Shades of Grayscale.
If someone had walked in, they would have, So he'd stand there and he'd say, what are you doing next? And we'd say, oh, we're just about to, and then push him over. And then you get genuine surprise reactions. So that's part of the reason why the animation in GoldenEye wasn't too bad at all.
Fantastic. Now we've got, obviously you're in the team, that was the rest of the team. There are 2 other people that are important here. These fellas, if you don't know, are the enigmatic Stamper brothers. So I'm going to start with you, Carl, and move on to you, Graham. What are your memories of these chaps, and how important was their role in GoldenEye?
I mean, they were critical. Rare was a great place to go and work, particularly for someone starting in the industry. We were given enormous freedom to go away and make the game. I mean, they played their part along with Martyn in sort of protecting the team from the commercial realities of, are you ever going to get this game finished? And they obviously had to try and deliver for Nintendo, and they had a bunch of new grads out in the barn at the back who were having a lot of fun making a game, but not seemingly getting close to finishing it at any point. So it was the freedom that they gave to develop the game that ultimately allowed it to be as good as it was, because there wasn't time pressure in that sense put on us.
I mean, that sounds very important. I just wondered, is any of their code, even a tiny bit, or in case of Tim artwork, is any of that somewhere in GoldenEye?
Code that they did?
Or art, if it was Tim. I just wondered if there was any little bit of
I mean, that stage Rare was growing quickly, and they were fully focused on growing the studio, so I'm not aware that it was Tim. I think the last thing Tim had worked on was Donkey Kong Country. I think he'd done a few bits in that.
Can I pass on to Graham? Just to, obviously these are some of the most famous people in the British software industry, but they're notoriously private people. We've all tried to interview them, it doesn't get you anywhere. I just wondered, as someone who's worked with them for quite a long time, Graham, are they very private people? Is that how it comes across?
Yeah, I mean, they're private, but they're passionate. They were very approachable guys. It wasn't like they would shy away from the staff. They were great people to work with. I just think ever since the Ultimate Play the Game days in 8-bit era, they've just been very press shy, basically. But as for 2 guys to work with, they'd always encourage you to do better. and not in a like that's crap, do better than that. But you know, they could see what you were doing and they could suggest ways to improve it, or they're very open to that kind of input. So very creative guys.
Now, one thing they weren't really open to is the multiplayer, which of course a lot of us here, that's one of the reasons, one of the main reasons we are still playing GoldenEye 20 years later. Now Graham, I understand that you actually saw the multiplayer mode almost accidentally. Can you remember going into the room and going, hang on, what have you done?
Yeah, more or less that. I went in because I don't know how documented it is, but Steve also did a Spectrum emulator for before he was doing that. So he had all the Ultimate games in there, like Jetpack, Nightlaw, all of those. It got ripped out in the end because the Sinclair Spectrum kernel ROM was copyrighted. So so for legal reasons we had to remove it. I'd gone in there to play probably Jetpack or a Tic Tac or something, and he had that on his screen. And I was like, what's going on? And Martyn just went, shh. So we don't mention the multiplayer. And I was sent on my way.
I understand that the stamp, I think it was Chris Stamper, when he did actually find out you had done a multiplayer one, he said this is going to be no fun at all because you can see what the other players are doing, right? Which of course seems odd now, but I wonder, Graham, is that when you pointed that out, did you go, yeah, perhaps this is going to be a bit rubbish? I mean, what did you think?
I think he changed his mind once he played it, because you can look at the other three screens, but then you can't see what you're doing. It's logical, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. Now, we're going to stick with multiplayer. We've got another still, Martyn. Now, if we look here, okay, here we are, okay. So up here we'll see that is fantastic facial modelling there. And that is Sean Connery. So tell us, I understand that up to quite near the end of development, there was more than one Bond in the game, is that right?
I'll let Carl. Carl's probably remembers this better than I do.
Of course, go and tell us. Tell us about the other Bond.
Yeah, so we were told when we started making the game that we had access to the full Bond universe and we could use whatever we wanted, which is why we've used some of the other films, like for the instance the Moonraker stuff, the Aztec and things like that. So we were putting everything in, and multiplayer was obviously the really opportunity to just mix and match between it, which is why we had Jaws and Baron Samedi and all these guys. And we were told that Bond was the same, and then very late in the day we got a letter saying that the legal thing hadn't been sorted out and we couldn't use the likenesses of the other Bond actors.
But I understand, as a sort of farewell to the other Bonds, didn't you have this like epic 3-hour deathmatch? Is that right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we were staying late every evening trying to finish the game, and we played a lot of multiplayer. And when we realised we had to take it out, we said, okay, well, we'll have one last fling with it. So everyone played a different Bond, and we spent, I think it went on for about 3 hours in the end.
And who won?
I have no idea.
That's classic interview. I know who
I
won.
did.
Right?
I'm sure it was me.
I believe it was Mark Edmonds won by one shot, and he was, what Bond was he? The one you like.
Oh, was it Moore?
He was Roger Moore. So Roger Moore is officially the best Bond, according to that multiplayer deathmatch.
It used to really annoy me because Mark was a particularly good multiplayer guy, and I would build the levels, and then he would beat me on them straight away.
How annoying.
And it would, and so I would build, places like the Complex have these little hidden ones behind walls that don't have any hidden. That was me cheating to try and beat Mark.
Nice.
And it worked the first time you did it, and then you find them very quickly, and then that was it. So,
can we stick to the Bond thing? I want to ask you, obviously, a hypothetical question. Is that how important do you think Bond was to this whole game? I mean, it could have just been a great first-person shooter. You could have anything. I want to know how crucial do you think the actual Bond license was to the final product?
It's one of those questions that's really hard to work out. You're better off asking, the people who bought the game in the end. I think, from our point of view, first of all, it was a bit of an albatross because it was a film license, and we weren't sure it would turn people off straight away. But then it was a really cool thing because one, the Bond franchise was relaunching with Pierce Brosnan when they hadn't made one for a while, so they were making quite a lot of noise. And two, Bond is still one of those internationally recognised characters, and particularly things like the gadgets. Straight away we saw the opportunity to do the watch. and do all the stuff that he does in the movies, and everyone thinks it's cool. We can do that in a first-person shooter, other than just shoot things. So from that point of view, it opened up more ideas of what we were going to do in the game, which we might not have thought about if it wasn't in the Bond universe. So I think, hopefully no one ever bought the game just because it was a James Bond game. Hopefully they bought it because it had people were saying it was good, it got good reviews, it was playing, and it was a little bit different.
And actually had some very famous players. We've got still here from the E3 launch in 1997. So over here we've got Grace Jones, not hula hooping, just playing GoldenEye. Can you remember that whole experience? Did you both go over to the E3 in 97?
Yes, it was in Atlanta.
Atlanta, right. Tell us, what are your memories of that time? You didn't go drinking with Grace by any chance?
No.
But tell us about your memories of that show.
It was quite bizarre because not a lot had been released about GoldenEye. I think we turned up at the Tokyo Game Show the year before and with a rather broken build and showed it behind closed doors. There's been a few bits in the magazines about the fact that we were going to be showing it at the E3 show and that it was a first-person shooter, and the general feedback from the magazines, what they were writing was generally a little bit sort of, oh, it's a first-person console game based on a movie license, so don't expect too much. So I think we went with quite low expectations, but Nintendo did a brilliant stand. We had a whole row of things, and they had a big 007, and so we thought, that's all right. And then after the first day, I remember going sort of mid-afternoon, and the stand was absolutely packed with people playing it. So we were all thinking, okay, well, it's going down okay here, And then the next day it was round, and we had 007 T-shirts that had been made, so it said GoldenEye 007. And everywhere you went, people would come up and say, "Where can I get a T-shirt, please?" And we'd say, "Oh, sorry, it's just Rare stuff." And then it's like, "Oh, did you work on GoldenEye then?" "Yes, have you played it?" "Oh, yes, we've been playing it all day." And so at that point, you kind of started to get a thing that, okay, people are enjoying it, and that was the first indication we had that we hadn't made a dud.
That's what I'm interested in, is that having lived with a game, either of you, having lived with a game for so long, are you not able to tell whether, is this good, is this bad? I don't know, I've been living it so long. So when someone else plays it, was that the really first time you thought, I think we've got something here?
Yeah, we were enjoying playing it, weren't we, in terms of the multiplayer particularly. We thought we had something really fun, but we also knew everything that was wrong with it. There was loads of stuff that we didn't get into it, that we wanted to get into it. I wasn't happy with the frame rate. I wasn't overly happy with some of
You're
the...
never happy with frame rates.
When you set off explosions, everything slowed down, and some of the environments weren't quite what I wanted. So we thought we had something fun, and we thought it was different. We thought there's a lot of game there. We thought there's a lot to play here. I was going around the E3 show looking at all the other games. I was looking at Turok Dinosaur Hunter and those games, and looking at them and thinking, oh, that looks a lot better than our game.
Oh, Turok, where are you now?
Yeah, it's a really hard one to gauge when you've been that close to it.
Well, the game not only got many of, millions of gamers were fans of it, but actually you've got some celebrity fans as well. We hope, is this going to work, Martyn? What do you reckon? We've actually got a video now, some of you may have seen it when it was on. It's from the Jimmy Fallon show, where Jimmy Fallon's a big fan, apparently, of GoldenEye, and he gets Pierce Brosnan to play it, so hopefully this will work. Right, you be Pierce Brosnan, you be Jimmy Fallon, okay? I think there's only 2 minutes, so should we actually risk keeping it going? When do they start playing in a second? So Pierce Brosnan is going to have a go. Jimmy Fallon is telling him how important GoldenEye was in his youth. Please, can he play it? Now, the thing that I'm intrigued about is just watch how Pierce Brosnan plays it, and be honest, is this how you played it the first time you picked up that controller? Let's just have a look. See, I don't think he's ever picked one of those controllers up before, do you? Where's the fire button?
What you can tell there is how much that level is a black and white level as well.
talk us through that. What do you mean when you say it's mainly black and white? People go, "What? I don't get it." Explain what you mean.
Because the memory was so limited for the graphics, the textures were tiny, but you could double the resolution on the textures if you made them what they're called intensity textures rather than RGB textures, so you got rid of all the colour information out of them. So if you look at GoldenEye, about a third to half of it is actually black and white because it was me desperately trying to get some more resolution into the textures. So it's a black and white game with a little bit of colouring on the vertices.
I say Paul Pierce didn't even work out how to pick a weapon up, bless him, okay, right? Now one of the things that showed is that GoldenEye had lots of firsts, and one of them was that the gun was separate from the camera, okay? It's not the only first, there's lots of firsts in a GoldenEye. Dual wielding, that apparently Halo invented 7 years later, so dual wielding of weapons. I believe there's even some really clever stuff, which I didn't realise till I looked closer, is that you've got some environment mapping, so some of the shiny surfaces reflect stuff back. So my question to, again, either of you, both of you, is that were you conscious of trying to kind of push the envelope, or was it just a case of, well, we didn't know it couldn't be done, so we had to go?
From a graphics point of view, yeah, I mean, there was Martyn would come to me with various ideas saying, oh, I found this, we can do this with this, the engine, we can do that, so we've got this environment map, what you need to do is change the setting. I'm not a programmer, but I had enough programming experience that I could go in and meddle with things a little bit, so he would tell me what to do and then I would go in and meddle with it. And as long as it didn't, break anything, it meant so I would find these options to do this stuff and then go back and say, are you okay if I do this? And you go, yeah, that's fine. And so, we were always looking to make the stuff shiny, because shiny in those days was really special.
Shiny is good.
So I don't know about audio.
For us, it was mostly trying to squeeze as much in as we could. You were talking earlier about the hardware not knowing what it was, and we were under the impression that there was going to be a lot more audio capacity than there ended up. I think that that was in the days of sound channels. So Super Nintendo had 8, Game Boy had 4, and we were told that the N64 or the Ultra 64 would have 100. That's loads. There's loads of channels. Ended up it was 16. So yeah, we had a little bit of squeezing to do. But yeah, it didn't mean we weren't trying to push as much as we could, because we'd pushed it a little bit too far to start with, and then it was a good kind of task to try and squeeze it all into the capacity that we had.
I understand some ideas didn't quite make it. Is it true that you were going to have reloading by people pulling out the memory pack and putting it back in? Did you toy with that?
Carroll.
Yes, we were going to do that, and Nintendo told us we weren't allowed to because they were worried it was going to break controllers.
Was there any other ideas that, looking back now, that you didn't quite manage to get in?
We had a map originally to track Bond as he travelled around the world. We had a fully environment mapped inside of the gun barrel for the opening sequence, which looked really cool, but we ran out of memory, so that got killed. I think that was the main ones.
Well, we're going to sort of bring this bit to a close with a few sort of legacy questions here. Is that, as I mentioned at the start, is that GoldenEye is invariably mentioned as one of the best games ever written. That's from Computer and Video Games in 2000, who named us their #1 game. So I'm going to go to both of them. First, why do you think it's so well remembered? And on a personal level, how has it affected your career, even life?
I'm still dining out on it. So I have done other things since, just in case anyone's wondering. It was a fun multiplayer experience, and we were playing huge amounts of multiplayer games while we were making it, and I think we'd all come from that era of multiplayer gaming where you all sit around a TV and do that, so we always knew that was good, and it seems that the multiplayer was the thing that really resonated with people, so from that point of view, I suppose that's why it was the first console multiplayer experience like that.
Great, I was going to say is that when someone says, what do you do? And they say, oh, I make music for video games, and they say, so what you done? Do you open with GoldenEye? Is that your calling card?
We were just talking about this earlier, saying we have done other things since, but well, yeah, that's the one people remember, obviously, and it's mostly people saying, I nearly messed up college thanks to you, because we'd spent all the time, playing it with our flatmates and stuff. It's 20 years is a long time, so there's fewer people nowadays that will remember that.
Judging by the audience here, Graham, I think not, and that brings us quite nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a huge round of applause for Carl and Graham? Okay, thank you so much, that's fascinating, thanks gents. Okay, now it's over to you. We have got friends here from the RetroUnlim managing the roving mic. So can I just say, it's dark, and I think on my glasses. So you might have to wave, and then the mic will come to you. If you've got any questions for Carl, Graham, or indeed both. So we've got here, and then we've got loads over here as well. Okay.
Hi lads. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you. But secondly, whose idea was it to come up with the 2 bonus levels at the end?
Sorry, which bonus levels? I think it was
The Aztec Complex and the Egyptian Crypt.
Oh, that was me, yeah. Because there was my, Roger Moore was my favourite. So I wanted to do the Moonraker stuff really badly, so I just went to Martyn and said, do you mind if I do this? And he was like, yeah, that's cool. And also we were doing a lot of multiplayer design right at the end, trying to squeeze it all in before the launch date. So it was just really obvious trying to use those sorts of movies as backgrounds for just doing that and then turning them into actual playable levels later.
Dan, I think there's loads of people over here, so we've got a right bundle here, here, and then over there. You're getting all 4 of you, don't worry, you're in.
It's up to today.
Thank you very much. You said that you like to try and maybe include a few hidden extras so that you'd have an edge over your teammates when you're playing multiplayer. I'd like to ask you both, do you have a specific weapons mode and level that you'd pick when you really wanted to win a game?
Odd job, obviously. And the complex. The complex was the first level we built to test out the multiplayer. So that's the one that I threw every idea I had into, having never made a multiplayer level before, so it was a kind of a learning experience. So that was the one, and I constantly went back and played with it and changed it, and I never told anyone else I was doing it. So sort of 6 o'clock we'd say, right, let's sit down and play multiplayer, and I'd choose the complex specifically, and people like Mark Evans would go, fine, and then he'd discover that I'd blocked off his favourite doorway and put a new one in somewhere else. Because it was so quick to do in those days. Well, you could do it in an hour and then rebuild the level and send it out. So yeah, that's what I would do. Golden Gun was always my favourite. I think I could be wrong, but I think it was my idea that the Golden Gun, because it was 1 bullet kill in the films. You always kill with 1 bullet. I think we should do that as a mode. Duncan or Dave might dispute that. I can't really remember, but yeah.
I still like the complex, and as you're about to find out, I'm terrible at playing first-person shooters. So I used to like Slappers Only because it sort of levelled the playing field. So, because I wouldn't get sniped by the better players.
I didn't myself grow up with an N64. I always used to visit a friend. So multiplayer is the only experience I've really got of the game. And I just remember I was slapping everybody for ages and ages and ages. And it just made me think, if you had the time and the resources, would you have implemented any other multiplayer modes? Or were you just happy with what you had? Like maybe Capture the Flag, Espionage, anything like that?
I think a lot of it was, we got a lot of feedback from Mario Club in Seattle for Nintendo America. They were playing the game a lot and they loved it. So they would come back with huge numbers of suggestions, and we just ran out of time in the end. A lot of the challenges that are in the game were stuff that they did and came back to us and said, we've just done this, and we're like, okay, well, we'll try that as well. Yeah, there was a phenomenal amount of feedback that was really good, and we could have implemented that, but we just didn't have the time. The game was already well over a year late. So.
I must admit, I've battled with this question for a while, if you don't mind me asking. I'm neilgamingguys.com, by the way. GoldenEye, was it the first game that ever zoomed in on a sniper rifle, or any gun? Because as far as I'm concerned, it was, and I haven't been able to be disproved by anyone so far.
Wasn't Murder, Death, Kill?
MDK, yeah. So there was a bit of we think we did it first, and they think they did it first. Yeah. They certainly came out before us, but we'd shown it at a show a bit before, and they'd been in to see it, I think. So I think that probably, it's one of those things. I think there's lots of things like that where people have the same idea and both implement it. And I think they came out before us with it. Because I remember going into the meeting room to look at it, and it had the sniper mode in it, and thinking, damn, they beat us to it.
I've got time for 2 more. Dan, are you on, mate?
I'm up here. Hello. I'm up.
Hello, from Dan. Big thing out.
I'm up. Yeah, it's a good thing. I hate to say it, but I was more of a fan of Perfect Dark, but I was always wondering, don't hate me, what I always wanted to know was any of...
Just turn the mic off. Come back in 3 years.
I was wondering, was any of the content in Perfect Dark always destined for GoldenEye? Because I know you were going to do Tomorrow Never Dies, and that kind of never happened. So was anything in Perfect Dark something you were always wanting to do in GoldenEye?
I mean, Perfect Dark was obviously our follow-up, and so it was a brilliant opportunity to right all the wrongs that we got in GoldenEye as far as we were concerned. So there was lots of stuff in terms of, there were quite a few deathmatch levels that I planned out on paper that never got into GoldenEye, and so they went into Perfect Dark. And there's a lot of ideas in terms of the levels that came from GoldenEye straight into Perfect Dark, but there was nothing specific like that.
Certainly, it was a good opportunity to improve the sound. Having GoldenEye being sort of the first game on the system, you were learning as you go along. So having the opportunity to do another shooter with that knowledge helped a lot to improve the quality of the sound effects and push the music more.
Okay, now final question.
I guess one quick question for both of you. Graham, my favourite theme music in the game is The Facility. Which is yours?
My favourite trio. I wrote a piece for the Jungle, which I ended up taking out because we went with the jungle effects in the first place. But because I liked it, but it sounded too much like a stripper tune, which I don't know how that happened, but I just like it because it doesn't really suit anything, but it makes me smile. I think it's in one of the multiplayer levels. You can pick it as a bonus tune or something.
Can we have one last question? Because I know Berman's had his hand for ages. It's the last one.
Brian, you were saying about the music and sound capabilities of the N64. Were there any tracks you had lots of instruments in that you had to take out?
No, it was mostly really boring techie stuff to make sure that notes weren't overspilling, stuff like that, because as soon as, say you're playing a piano line and you've got one note playing and then the second one plays, if they're both playing at the same time, that counts as 2 channels. So we'd have to go in and edit all these MIDI files to make sure that the sound count would be under 16. So it was really boring stuff like that. And yeah, where would you might use a trumpet, trombone, and a tuba or something. You go, right, we'll just use a trumpet, that kind of thing.
Well, there you go. What way to finish? Just use the trumpet. Now, as I promised, we're all going to finish with a multiplayer deathmatch. And as you can see, there's only 2 gentlemen here. So this is what we're going to do. If you would like to challenge these 2, we've got 2 spaces. We've got a way to work out, now take the clothes off, we've got a way to work out how you can challenge them. So if you would like to have a go at the opportunity of being the other 2 in the deathmatch, please can you come up to the front now, okay? Christ. Okay. Jesus. Okay. Right, I'm going to run out of... Right. I'm really sorry. Stop. Jesus. Martyn.